The transport ship came down through the clouds of station, 7 like a metal coffin falling from heaven. Park stood among the other cadets in the landing bay, watching through the massive windows as the vessel touched down. Steam hissed from its engines. Warning lights flashed red across the deck. "Everyone stay behind the yellow line," Lieutenant shouted over the noise. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and a voice that could cut through steel. "Nobody moves until I say so." Felt his friend Lee press closer to him. Was breathing fast, his hands shaking slightly. "Did you hear what they're bringing?" whispered. "A war beast. They say it killed 37 handlers. 37. Nodded but said nothing. He kept his eyes on the transport ship. The cargo doors were opening now, slow and heavy. Soldiers in full armor stood ready with weapons that could punch through starship hulls. Behind them, scientists in protective suits clutched their data tablets like shields. Then he saw it. The containment pod was the size of a small house. It floated on gravity lifters, surrounded by a shimmering blue energy field. Inside, something massive moved in the darkness. Caught a glimpse of armored hide, of claws longer than his arm, of eyes that glowed like dying stars. The creature slammed against the containment field. The whole pod shook. Several cadets stepped back. One of them, a young woman named Han, let out a small scream. "Steady," Lieutenant said. Her voice was calm but noticed her hand resting on her sidearm. "It cannot break through. The field is rated for 10 times its strength." The war beast roared. The sound was like nothing had ever heard. It was anger and pain and something else. Something that made his chest tight and his eyes sting. He did not understand why. The containment pod moved past them toward the research wing. As it passed, got his first clear look at the creature. It was 12 feet tall, covered in plates of natural armor that looked like black stone. 6 eyes sat in a face that was almost reptilian, almost, and completely alien. Its body was built for killing. Every part of it was a weapon. But notice something else. The creature's hide was covered in scars, not random marks from battle. These were patterns, lines and symbols carved into its flesh with terrible precision. Some of them still looked fresh, barely healed. "What are those marks?" asked quietly. Lieutenant glanced at him. "Control methods. The hegemony uses pain conditioning to train their beasts. Every scar is a lesson." Felt something cold settle in his stomach. "How many lessons?" The lieutenant did not answer. She did not need to. The creature's body told the story. Hundreds of scars, thousands of lessons, a lifetime of pain. That night, after the other cadets had gone to the recreation hall to forget what they had seen, went to the station's data archives. He was not supposed to access restricted files, but had always been good with computers. Back on Earth, in the crowded streets of Seoul, he had learned to find information that people tried to hide. The files on the species were buried deep. Most of them were marked with hegemony classification codes, but found enough. They had not always been monsters. 300 years ago, they were a peaceful species. They lived on a green world filled with forests and rivers. They built no weapons. They fought no wars. They were gentle giants who sang songs to their young and painted pictures on cave walls. Then the hegemony came. The hegemony was an empire that ruled through fear. They did not want allies. They wanted tools. When they found they saw potential. These creatures were strong. Their natural armor could stop most weapons. Their claws could tear through metal. So the hegemony took them. They took the adults and killed the weak ones. They took the children and raised them in laboratories. They used genetic manipulation to make them bigger, stronger, more violent. They used pain to teach obedience. They used fear to destroy hope. Over 300 years, the hegemony turned a peaceful species into living weapons. They forgot their songs. They forgot their paintings. They forgot everything except pain and rage and the need to obey. Stared at the screen for a long time. His hands were trembling. The creature in the containment pod was not a monster. It was a victim. It was the last survivor of a genocide that nobody talked about. Every scar on its body was a crime. Every roar was a scream for help that nobody could hear. He thought about what Lieutenant had said during the briefing. The beast would be studied for a few weeks. Then it would be killed, put down like a dangerous animal. No trial, no justice. Just another quiet death in a galaxy full of them. Closed the files and sat in the darkness of the archive room. He thought about his grandmother back on Earth. She had survived terrible things during the war years. She never talked about it, but sometimes would see her staring at nothing, her eyes far away and full of old pain. Everyone deserves someone who sees them, she had told him once. Not what they became, not what others made them, just them. He made a decision then. Maybe it was stupid, probably it was dangerous, but Park had never been good at walking away from pain he could see. The next morning, he volunteered for observation duty in the research wing. Lieutenant looked at him like he had lost his mind. You understand what you are asking. The creature has killed everyone who gets close to it. Scientists, soldiers, other beasts. It does not matter. I understand, said. Why would you want this assignment? Thought about the scars. He thought about the eyes that glowed like dying stars. He thought about 300 years of pain and a whole species lost to cruelty. Someone should watch over it, he said. Not to study it, not to control it, just to be there. Lieutenant was silent for a long moment. Then she shook her head slowly. You humans, she said. You are either the bravest species in the galaxy or the most foolish. I have never decided which. She signed the transfer order. That evening, Cadet Park walked into the research wing alone. Behind the containment field, the war beast watched him with 6 unblinking eyes. It did not roar. It did not charge. It simply watched, like it was waiting for something it had stopped believing would ever come. Sat down on the cold floor, just outside the energy barrier. Hello, he said softly. My name is, I thought you might like some company. The beast said nothing, but it did not look away. It was a beginning, for 3 nights, came to the containment chamber and sat on the floor. He did not try to give commands. He did not carry weapons. He simply sat and talked. He talked about Earth, about the mountains that touched the clouds and the oceans that stretched beyond sight. He talked about Seoul, where he grew up, with its bright lights and crowded streets and the smell of food cooking on every corner. He talked about his grandmother, who made the best soup in the whole city and never let him leave her house without eating 3 bowls. The war beast watched him. It never moved. It never made a sound, but noticed small things. On the first night, the creature stayed pressed against the far wall, as far from him as possible. On the second night, it moved a little closer. On the third night, it sat down. It was progress, tiny progress, but progress. You are going to get yourself killed, told him in the mess hall. His friend was eating quickly, nervously, like he always did when he was worried. The scientists are taking bets on how long before it breaks through and eats you. It is not going to eat me, said. How do you know? Thought about the creature's eyes. There was no hunger in them, only exhaustion. I just know. Shook his head. You always do this. Remember the stray dog behind our barracks on Earth, the one everyone said had rabies. You fed it for weeks. That dog did not have rabies. It bit you 3 times. It was scared, smiled a little. We became friends eventually. That was a dog. This is a 12-foot killing machine. Did not argue. He knew was worried because he cared. But some things were hard to explain. The creature in that containment field was not a machine. It was alive. It felt pain. It felt fear. And maybe, if someone showed it enough patience, it could feel something else. On the 4th night, something changed. Was talking about rain. Earth rain, specifically. How it sounded on the roof of his grandmother's house. How it smelled like clean air and growing things. How sometimes he would sit by the window and watch it fall for hours. The war beast made a sound. It was soft, so soft that almost missed it, a low rumble in its chest. Not a growl, not a warning, something else. Stop talking. The creature looked at him with those 6 strange eyes and for a moment felt like it was trying to tell him something, like it remembered something too. A memory from before the pain, before the scars, before it forgot how to be anything but a weapon. You had rain too, didn't you? Said quietly. On your world before they took you. The creature rumbled again. Then it lowered its massive head and closed its eyes. Felt his heart break a little. This was not a monster. This was a prisoner, a slave, a child stolen from its home and tortured until it forgot its own name. Word spread through the station. At first nobody believed it. A human cadet sitting with the war beast, talking to it like a friend. Impossible, ridiculous, suicidal. But then people started watching the security feeds. Doctor was the first scientist to take it seriously. He was a species that looked like tall insects with too many arms. His people were known for their intelligence and their love of data. When he saw the readings from the containment chamber, he called an emergency meeting. The creature's stress hormones have dropped by 40%, he announced, his multiple arms waving with excitement. Its heart rate is stable for the first time since capture. It is even sleeping. Sleeping. Do you understand what this means? General did not look impressed. The station commander was a species of warriors who had fought the hegemony for centuries. He was 8 feet tall, covered in scales, and had a voice like grinding stones. It means the beast is conserving energy, said, waiting for a chance to strike. No, no, no. Doctor shook his head rapidly. The patterns are wrong for that. This is not predatory behavior. This is trust, or the beginning of trust. I have never seen anything like it. From a human, laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Humans are soft, weak. They survive by breeding fast and dying in large numbers. There is nothing special about them. Then explain what is happening. Had no answer, but he did not change his plans. The beast would still be killed. In 2 weeks, the scientists would have enough data and the creature would be put down. That was the decision of the Galactic Council. One human cadet's strange behavior would not change it. Lieutenant pulled aside after his shift. She looked tired. There were lines around her eyes that had not noticed before. You are making people uncomfortable, she said. I am just sitting with it. You are making them think. That is worse. She paused, choosing her words carefully. The creature is scheduled for termination in 12 days. Whatever you think you are doing, it will not change that. Felt anger rise in his chest. Why? Because the council decided. Because it is easier to kill it than to help it. Because it is dangerous. Because it has killed. Because nobody in the history of the galaxy has ever tamed a war beast, and nobody ever will. I am not trying to tame it. Frowned, then what are you trying to do? Thought about the question. He thought about the scars on the creature's hide and the sound it made when he talked about rain. He thought about his grandmother and the look in her eyes when she remembered things she never spoke about. I am trying to show it that not everyone wants to hurt it, he said finally. I am trying to give it one good thing before it dies. Maybe that is stupid. Maybe it will not make any difference, but I have to try. Lieutenant was silent for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. My grandmother survived the occupation, she said. She never talked about it either, but she always said that the thing that saved her was not weapons or walls. It was the one person who brought her food when she was hiding, a stranger who risked everything just to show her that kindness still existed. She looked at with something like respect. Continue your observations, Cadet, but be careful. Hope is a dangerous thing for both of you. That night returned to the containment chamber. The war beast was waiting for him. It had moved to the front of the cage, close to the energy barrier. Its eyes followed him as he sat down. Hello again, said. I brought something today. He pulled out a small device and pressed a button. The sound of rain filled the chamber. Soft, gentle, endless rain. The creature went very still. Then slowly it lowered its head until its face was almost touching the barrier. Its eyes closed. A deep rumble came from its chest. It was not a growl. It was not a warning. It sounded almost like peace. Smiled and settled in to listen with it. Outside, the station continued its work. Scientists gathered data. Soldiers patrolled halls. Commanders made plans for termination. But in the containment chamber, a human and a monster sat together and remembered what rain sounded like. Neither of them knew that their time was running out faster than they thought. The explosion came at midnight. Was in his quarters, dreaming of green forests and falling rain, when the station shook like a giant had punched it. He hit the floor before he was fully awake. Alarms screamed through the halls. Red emergency lights painted everything the color of blood. All personnel to battle stations, the computer announced. Hull breach in sectors 7 through 12. Hostile forces detected. This is not a drill. Grabbed his boots and ran. The halls were chaos. Cadets in half-worn uniforms sprinted past him. Soldiers in armor shouted orders. Somewhere in the distance, he heard weapons fire and screaming. He found at the intersection near the mess hall. His friend was pale, clutching a standard-issue pistol like he had never held one before. "Hegemony," said, his voice shaking. "They sent a strike team. They are here for the beast." Felt his blood go cold. "Where?" "Research wing. Lieutenant is organizing a defense, but..." Did not hear the rest. He was already running. The research wing was 3 levels down and half a station away. The elevators were locked down for emergency protocol, so took the maintenance shafts. He crawled through darkness lit only by emergency strips, his heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. He kept thinking about the creature. It was alone in that containment chamber. It had no weapons, no armor, no way to defend itself. If the hegemony reached it first. He pushed himself faster. The maintenance shaft opened into a storage room near the research labs. Dropped down and pressed himself against the wall, listening. He could hear fighting nearby. Energy weapons. Explosions. Someone screaming in a language he did not recognize. Then he heard something else. A voice, speaking in harsh, clicking syllables that made his skin crawl. He knew that sound from the files he had read. Hegemony command language. The words they used to control their war beasts. He was too late. Moved through the shadows until he reached the containment chamber. The door had been blown open. Inside, he could see the energy barrier flickering and sparking. It was failing. 3 hegemony soldiers stood around the chamber. They wore black power armor that made them look like insects made of metal. Their weapons were pointed at the war beast, but they were not shooting. They were speaking. The harsh command words echoed through the room. Each syllable was designed to trigger pain memories, to remind the creature of every scar, every lesson, every moment of suffering. The words said, "Obey, submit, return to your masters." The war beast was shaking. Had never seen it like this. Its massive body trembled like a leaf in a storm. Its 6 eyes were wild, unfocused, lost in memories of torture. It was caught between the conditioning that had shaped its whole life and something new, something fragile. One of the soldiers laughed. "Look at it, still broken, still ours." "Command wants it back intact," another said. "The program needs more subjects. This one knows the humans now. It can help us understand their weaknesses." Pathetic species, soft and sentimental, they thought they could tame it with kindness. The soldier spat on the ground. "There is no kindness in the universe, only power." Did not think, he did not plan, he stepped into the room. The soldiers turned. For a moment they just stared at him, a human cadet, no armor, no weapons, walking toward them like he had a death wish. "What is this?" one of them asked, almost amused. Did not look at them. He looked at the war beast. He looked at those 6 eyes, lost and terrified and drowning in old pain. "Hey," he said softly, "it is me, remember." The creature's eyes focused on him. A small sound came from its throat, not a growl, a question. The hegemony commander raised his weapon. "Kill him, slowly. Let the beast watch. Remind it what happens to those who show weakness." Kept walking. His legs were shaking. His hands were shaking. Everything in his body screamed at him to run, but he kept his eyes on the creature and kept moving forward. "I know you are scared," he said. "I know they hurt you for so long. They made you forget who you were. They made you forget that you were ever anything but a weapon." He was close now, close enough that the soldiers could have killed him 10 times over. But they were watching, curious, waiting to see what this foolish human would do. "But I remember," said. "I remember the files I read about your people, about the world you came from, green forests, blue rivers, songs that your mothers sang to you under the stars." The creature went very still. "You are not what they made you. You are not their weapon. You are not their slave." Reached the edge of the failing barrier. The energy crackled around him, burning his skin, but he did not stop. "You are a child of the. You are the last memory of a people who deserved better, and you are not alone, not anymore." He stepped through the barrier. The pain was incredible. Every nerve in his body caught fire. He smelled his own flesh burning, but he kept moving until he was standing in front of the creature, close enough to touch. The hegemony commander screamed the kill command, the word that had never failed, the word that triggered 300 years of conditioning. The war beast's muscles coiled, its claws extended, its eyes locked onto, and reached up, placed his burned hand on the creature's face, and whispered 3 words. "You are safe." Time stopped. The creature looked at him, really looked at him, past the pain and the fear and the conditioning, past everything the hegemony had built into its brain. It looked at him and saw something it had never seen before. Someone who was not afraid of it, someone who was not trying to control it, someone who walked through fire just to tell it that it mattered. The war beast made a choice. It was not the choice the hegemony expected. It was not the choice anyone in the galaxy would have predicted. But it was the choice that a creature makes when it finally, after centuries of darkness, sees a single point of light. It turned away from, and it faced its former masters. The hegemony commander had 1 second to understand what was happening, 1 second to see death coming for him in the form of 12 feet of rage and broken chains. Then the war beast moved. It was faster than anything that size should be. It hit the first soldier before he could raise his weapon, claws tearing through power armor like paper. The second soldier fired, but the beast was already past him, spinning, striking. The third tried to run. Nobody runs from a war beast. When it was over, the chamber was silent except for the sound of the creature breathing. Heavy, ragged, free. It turned back to, slowly, carefully, like it was afraid of scaring him. It lowered its massive head. Its eyes, all 6 of them, were clear now, present, alive. And then, in a motion that no war beast had ever made in 300 years of slavery, it knelt. Not in submission, not in defeat. In gratitude. Stood there, his body burned and broken, tears streaming down his face. He placed his hand back on the creature's head and felt it lean into his touch. "I told you," he whispered, "you are safe now." Behind them, security teams finally arrived. They found a human cadet standing in a room full of dead hegemony soldiers, his hand resting on a war beast that looked at him like he was the only thing in the universe that mattered. Lieutenant was the first to lower her weapon. The galaxy would never be the same. The medical bay was quiet except for the soft beeping of machines. Lay on a bed wrapped in healing gel, his burns slowly fading under the blue light of regeneration pods. The doctors said he was lucky to be alive. The energy barrier should have killed him. Walking through it should have been impossible. But was alive, and so was the creature. It had not left his side. The war beast sat in the corner of the medical bay, too large for the space, its armored body pressed against the wall. Medical staff had to squeeze past it to reach other patients. Nobody complained. Nobody dared. General stood at the entrance, his massive arms crossed over his chest. He had been staring at the scene for 10 minutes without speaking. Finally, he turned to Lieutenant. "Explain this to me," he said. "Explain how a human cadet with no weapons and no training walked into a containment chamber, faced 3 hegemony elite soldiers, and survived. Explain how a war beast broke 3 centuries of conditioning because a boy whispered nice words to it." Lieutenant did not have an answer. Neither did Doctor, who stood nearby clutching a tablet full of readings he could not explain. Neither did any of the scientists, soldiers, or officials who had watched the security footage over and over. "It should not be possible," Doctor said softly. "The conditioning is genetic. It is burned into their brains at the cellular level. You cannot break it with kindness. You cannot break it with anything. We have tried for decades." "And yet," gestured at the creature, "there it sits, guarding him like a mother guards her young." The war beast rumbled softly. Its eyes never left sleeping form. Arrived an hour later, still wearing his emergency uniform, his face pale and exhausted. He stopped at the doorway and stared at the creature blocking his path. He said. The war beast looked at him. All 6 eyes examined him carefully. Then it shifted slightly, making just enough room for to squeeze past. Moved very slowly, very carefully. He did not breathe until he reached bed. "You are insane," he said to his sleeping friend. "Completely insane. I cannot believe you are alive." His eyes opened. He smiled weakly. "You made it." "Of course I made it. I hid in a supply closet for most of the attack. Very heroic," glanced at the creature. "Unlike some people who decided to walk through energy barriers to pet a giant monster." "It is not a monster." "Tell that to the 3 hegemony soldiers. It turned into modern art." Tried to laugh but winced at the pain. They deserved it. Was quiet for a moment, then he reached out and grabbed his hand. "I was really scared. When I heard you went to the research wing, I thought I would never see you again. I had to go. I could not leave it alone, not with them." "I know," squeezed his hand. "That is what makes you. You see something hurting and you cannot walk away, even if it kills you." The war beast made a soft sound. It was watching them with what almost looked like curiosity. "I think it likes you," said. "It tolerates me because I am your friend," smiled nervously. "If I ever hurt you, I am pretty sure it would eat me." "Probably." The next few days were chaos. The hegemony attack had been stopped, but the damage was done. Not just to the station, but to the carefully maintained lies that the galactic community told itself. The security footage spread across every network in known space. People watched a human cadet walk through fire to reach a creature everyone said was unkillable. They watched him speak to it with gentleness while soldiers pointed weapons at his back. They watched him whisper 3 words that changed everything. And they watched a war beast kneel. The reaction was immediate. On 100 worlds, people demanded answers. How many were still in hegemony hands? How long had this been happening? Why had nobody tried to help them before? The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Representatives from every major species gathered to watch the footage again and again. They argued about what it meant. They argued about what to do. General spoke first. "The creature is still dangerous. What happened was an anomaly, a fluke. We should proceed with the original plan and terminate it before it causes more damage." Doctor interrupted him. "The readings say otherwise. The creature's brain chemistry has fundamentally shifted. The conditioning pathways are still there, but they are no longer dominant. Something new has taken their place." "Something new?" a council member asked. "What do you mean?" "Attachment, loyalty, trust." Doctor waved his many arms excitedly. Emotions we thought were impossible for a weaponized. The human did not break the conditioning. He gave the creature something stronger to hold on to. Lieutenant stepped forward. I have been monitoring the cadet and the creature since the incident. The beast shows no aggression toward anyone as marked as safe. It follows his lead. It responds to his voice. It protects him. So we trade one form of control for another, said. Instead of the hegemony owning it, a human does. No, shook her head. Does not control it. He does not give it orders. He asks. He suggests. The creature chooses to follow because it wants to. That is the difference. The arguments continued for hours, but in the medical bay was dealing with his own challenges. You need a name, he told the creature. It was sitting beside his bed now, close enough that he could reach out and touch its hide. I cannot keep calling you it or the creature. You are a person. You deserve a name. The war beast tilted its head. It made a questioning sound. In Korean we have a word, said. It means day, like a new day, a fresh start. He looked into those 6 strange eyes. Would you like that? The creature was still for a moment. Then it lowered its head until its face was level with us. A deep rumble came from its chest. It sounded almost like a word. It smiled. Hello, it is nice to meet you. Properly, I mean. Pressed its massive head gently against shoulder. The weight of it should have hurt, but did not mind. He wrapped his arms around as much of the creature as he could reach. You are safe, he whispered again. I will keep saying it until you believe it. Made a sound that might have been a sigh. A sound of someone finally letting go of pain they had carried too long. Outside the medical bay, the galaxy continued to spin. Politicians argued. Soldiers planned. Scientists gathered data. But in that small room, a human and a creature who had been enemies by design sat together in silence. It was not the end of anything. It was the beginning. 3 months had passed since the night that changed everything. The galaxy was still adjusting. The Galactic Council had voted to create the Recovery Initiative, a program dedicated to finding and rehabilitating the war beasts still held by the hegemony. It was the first time in recorded history that the Council had taken action to help a species everyone had written off as lost. The decision had not been easy. Many had argued against it. Too dangerous, they said. Too expensive. Too late. But the footage kept spreading. The image of kneeling before a human cadet had become a symbol, a reminder that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, compassion could still exist. Stood at the viewport of the initiative's flagship, the sunrise, watching the stars drift past. His burns had healed, leaving faint scars on his arms and hands. He wore them like medals, reminders of the night he walked through fire. Behind him rested on the specially reinforced floor. The creature had grown calmer over the past weeks. Its eyes were brighter. The constant tension in its muscles had eased. Sometimes, late at night, would hear it making soft sounds in its sleep. He liked to think they were good dreams. Deep thoughts. Turned to find Lieutenant walking toward him. She had requested transfer to the initiative the day after the council vote. Now she served as the mission's military commander. Just thinking about how much has changed, said. Stood beside him looking out at the stars. A lot has changed, you most of all. Me. 3 months ago, you were a cadet who talked to dangerous creatures because you felt sorry for them. Now you are the face of an entire movement. She smiled slightly. They are calling you the Beast Whisperer, you know. There are songs about you on 17 different worlds. Felt his face heat up. That is embarrassing. It is inspiring, different thing. Looked at who had raised its head to watch them. How is our patient today? Better, always better. Reached down to rest his hand on its head. The creature leaned into his touch. The doctors say its stress hormones are almost at normal levels now, whatever normal means for a. That is good, because we are going to need both of you for what comes next. His expression grew serious. You found more of them. Nodded. Intelligence reports confirm at least 12 war beasts still in active hegemony service. There may be more in hidden facilities. The hegemony is not happy about losing their weapons. They are moving the remaining beasts to more secure locations. Then we have to move faster. We will, but his voice softened. Not all of them will be like. Some of them have been conditioned for much longer. Some of them may be too far gone to reach. Was quiet for a moment. He thought about the scars on his body, the centuries of pain, the darkness that no creature should have to survive. Maybe, he said finally, but we have to try. Every single one deserves a chance, even if it is just one moment of kindness before the end, even if all we can do is tell them they are not alone. Looked at him with something like wonder. You really believe that, don't you? My grandmother taught me. She said that sometimes the smallest act of compassion can change everything. You never know when you might be the only light someone sees. Smiled. She was right. The door to the observation deck opened. Walked in, carrying a tablet and looking flustered. There you are, I have been looking everywhere. He stopped when he saw watching him. Hello, big scary friend, please do not eat me. Made a sound that might have been a laugh. Over the past months, it had grown used to. The two had developed their own strange friendship, built on nervous jokes and cautious respect. What is it? Asked. Message from the council. They want you to address the General Assembly next week. Something about inspiring the younger generations. Rolled his eyes. As if you are not already annoying enough without a galaxy-wide platform. Very supportive, thank you. That is what friends are for, smiled, but then his expression grew serious. Also, there is news from the hegemony border. One of their transport ships was intercepted. There was a war beast on board, young one, maybe only 50 years into conditioning. His heart jumped. Where? 3 days away at maximum speed. The ship is in custody, but the beast is not doing well. They had to sedate it. Nobody can get close. Looked at, the creature was already rising to its feet, as if it understood, as if it was ready. Tell the captain to set course, said. We are going. Lieutenant nodded. I will alert the crew. She paused at the door. Be careful, this one might be different. They are all different, that is the point. Left, lingered, his face worried. You do not have to do this, you know, he said quietly. You have already done more than anyone could ask. Nobody would blame you if you step back. Shook his head. I cannot step back, not now, not when there are still creatures out there suffering like did. He looked at his friend. Would you step back if you knew you could help? Sighed. No, probably not. That is why I am here, I guess. Watching you do impossible things and hoping you do not get killed. I will try not to. Please do. Your grandmother would be very upset with me if I let something happen to you. Laughed. It felt good to laugh. So much of the past year had been heavy, painful, but there were moments of light too, moments like this. Left to prepare for the journey, turned back to the viewport beside him. Are you ready? He asked the creature. There is another one out there like you, scared and hurt and thinking nobody cares. Made a deep sound. It pressed its head against a shoulder. The message was clear. Ready? Smiled. He placed his hand on his face and felt the warmth beneath the armor. Then let us go tell them they are not alone. The sunrise turned toward the hegemony border. Ahead of them, a frightened creature waited in the dark, not knowing that help was coming, not knowing that somewhere in the vast, cold galaxy, there was a human who believed that every life was worth saving. And beside that human, there was a war beast who had learned to kneel not out of fear, but out of love. The stars stretched out before them, endless and bright. This was not an ending. It was the first day of something new. A new day. A fresh start. For all of them.